Howdy folks, today we'll be covering Ori and the Blind Forest. If you haven't played it, I'd recommend it as I'll be spoiling the game in depth throughout the video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy. It was June 2014 when I first saw the announcement of Ori and the Blind Forest at E3. At the time, Metroidvanias didn't interest me in the slightest because I hadn't played one I enjoyed. But nowadays, I've seen some of the best the genre has to offer with Castlevanias such as Symphony of the Night, Aria of Sorrow, and Dawn of Sorrow, as well as Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, Hollow Knight, and now, of course, Ori and the Blind Forest. This game is something special, and I know that's not exactly a wild statement, but I hope you'll agree with me after this video. Let me start with some quick thoughts about the game for anyone who hasn't played it. This game is drop-dead gorgeous. The art style looks hand-drawn and was intended to look like Rayman Origins and Legends, also two great games by the way, and it was a great choice. The colors make every area look and feel unique to add to the atmosphere you'll feel while exploring. The music is also outstanding, some of the most enjoyable to just turn on and listen to. It's calming and melancholic, while also anxious and exciting in places. Each track is perfectly crafted and utilized in the game, and I'd like to thank Gareth Coker for his excellent soundtrack, as well as the sound designers for the way it's incorporated here. They nailed it in every single way. The gameplay is tight and makes the platforming so enjoyable to play. I just want to keep playing parts of the game for hours. Could you imagine a 10-minute version of the Jinso Tree escape? Sounds like a platforming dream to me. Each upgrade given is a great addition to the sandbox, and the difference between starting the game and ending it leaves you in completely different positions and skill sets. It truly inspires you to grow your skills, and that's what great games do. They make you better at the medium. Even the skills you can upgrade in the game make it a completely different experience depending on how you play, and reward you for your playstyle. If you want to find collectibles easier, you can. If you want to make your platforming easier and introduce an even higher skill ceiling, you can. If you want to destroy the corruption throughout the forest of Nibel without a scratch, you can. The world is expertly crafted in such a way that encourages you to explore every inch, but also allows you to explore at your own pace. If you want to fly through the game, you can, but you might miss out on health, energy, or ability cells. There are a large number of collectibles scattered around the world, and every single one rewards you for taking the time to grab it. Parts of the world even change with your exploration, finding secret switches to unlock new paths, or even progressing the story can make traversal easier. All of the enemies are enjoyable to fight and are almost always fairly placed around the map. Everything can be a challenge if you're unprepared. I hope that's enough of a recommendation, but if my gushing hasn't already won you over, the story itself is enough. Again, I'd advise you come back later if you haven't already played this game, go play it and come right back. I'll get to it soon enough, as everyone who's been with my channel knows that writing is where I tend to shine, but I'd like to go over the gameplay first. This will be in-depth and discuss a lot of mechanics, so you might want to grab a snack while I do this. The gameplay is such a massive topic in and of itself that it'll be tough to explain it with any level of brevity. Over the course of the game, you'll be given access to a wide set of skills that slowly but surely increase the ceiling of possible skill tenfold. These upgrades range from something as simple as jumping up a wall, to something as complex as the ability to bounce off of an enemy, object, or projectile to send them flying one way or another. Some of the best moments in the game are bouncing and gliding around tight platforms before redirecting the enemy's projectile back into them. It's a great feeling to pull off that close shot. Every upgrade you're given is like a piece of a puzzle, and this may be the most I've ever meant that. And that when you start the game, it may feel slow and clunky, but each additional upgrade will make you start to feel what the developers intended. You're light as a feather, you float like a butterfly, and you sting like a bee. And we haven't even discussed combat yet. The combat is one of the only things I'd understand criticism of for this game. But I've got more context to give for it to alleviate those concerns a little bit. The combat is very simple. Every enemy has a red aura around them, and once it turns yellow, pressing the attack button will send a punch of light to the enemy from Sane. Or soon after the opening of the game, you'll get a charged attack to blast your enemies apart. At first, these are relatively weak, and assuming you don't use any skill points to upgrade your abilities, it will remain weak. This is also something I haven't really mentioned yet, so let's tackle that first and we'll circle back. Every enemy you defeat will drop experience points, allowing you to upgrade your abilities through your soul link, which is a way to let yourself quickly save your progress at almost any point in the game. You have a wide array of upgrades from 3 different skill trees: combat, exploration, and abilities. Combat being infinitely more enjoyable once fully upgraded, making every attack not only viable, but fun to use and experiment with. Exploration, taking all of the challenge out of finding upgrades for health, energy, and additional ability cells to upgrade other skills, as well as map fragments to see the entire map. And finally, my favorite, the ability tree gives you some of the most important upgrades, like being able to rekindle your soul links for free, allowing for a quick save at no cost, or another letting you heal from your soul links, or another that lets you breathe underwater, Or even the final ability of the tree, which is almost broken, a triple jump, which makes platforming almost trivial, but mix that with all of the other upgrades given throughout the game makes for some of the most skillful and special platforming or traversal in a 2D game. Whew! That was a lot of gameplay discussion. Now we can finally discuss the story. If you'd like to skip, jump to this time code. Ready? Here we go. Ori and the Blind Forest is a very simple story. There isn't a lot to unpack here, but what is here is excellent and very well told through its beautifully crafted world and cutscenes. What if I told you there isn't a single spoken word of English in this game, but every single person who plays it will understand the core message? Our tale begins with a voice, talking about the night that Ori was born, on a stormy night that blew the little spirit guardian from the spirit tree and away from the forest. Lost and orphaned, Ori is found by Naru, a bear that lived nearby. Naru decides to raise the little spirit as her own. Over time, the two develop a close bond, living a simple life, only needing to find enough food to survive. They slowly eat all of the fruit from the nearby trees and must branch out across a pond by building a bridge. This cutscene shows how close these two are, and I personally believe that it shows that familial bond excellently. They make it across and begin taking all of it back to their home, but the large tree that Ori came from is shining very brightly, calling to Ori, but Ori doesn't know and doesn't answer. Time passes and they eat more and more of the fruit, and while this happens, the forest that they live in slowly turns withered and dead. Naru goes out to bring more home for Ori, but no fruit is growing anymore, and what little fruit is left is too high for her to reach. Even though she does try, she comes home and leaves the last fruit for Ori, even declining it when Ori offers. Ori goes out and easily collects the tall fruit, but doesn't make it back soon enough, and Naru has passed away. Orphaned once more, Ori leaves and stumbles hopelessly through the forest before dying. The spirit tree uses the last of its power to resurrect Ori and sends him on an adventure he'll never forget. All of this is a single cutscene, and it gives all of the context you need to begin the adventure. You'll uncover the rest over the next few hours. Ori travels deeper into the forest and finds a spirit orb named Sane, who is the light and eyes of the spirit tree of Nibel. Sane is the only real speaking role of the game, and your guide through Nibel. Sane leads Ori to a spirit sapling, who is a fallen spirit guardian, and tells Ori to absorb the light from the tree. This is how you collect your upgrades throughout the game, and quite frankly, it's unique to me. It tells the player that the game isn't necessarily easy, your allies have fallen, and you can use what they had learned to better yourself and do what they couldn't. Multiple spirit saplings are scattered across the game, and each one comes at the exact moment you'll need them. Ori continues through the forest, eventually making his way to the spirit tree, where you learn that when it called to Ori, an owl named Kuro attacked the tree and destroyed the light, blinding the forest and leaving it unable to protect itself from corruption. It tasks Ori with restoring 3 elements to Nibel and saving the forest. First up, the element of water at the Jinso tree, then the element of wind at the Forlorn Ruins, and finally, the element of warmth at the volcano, Mount Haru. Some games would let you choose your own objective, but this game's narrative relies that you do these in this order. Ori heads towards the Jinso tree and finds the water vein, an item used to open the door to it, being stolen by Gumo, a creature who you've seen creeping around the forest, watching you. The game explicitly explains why Gumo does this. While Ori brought hope and light to the forest, others gave in, embraced darkness and fear. Gumo lures Ori deeper into the caves and pulls a lever, collapsing a bridge and leaving Ori to fend off enemies and traps galore. Ori, using a new spirit power, escapes the caves and finds Gumo trapped under falling rubble. Ori frees Gumo, showing kindness where Gumo did not, leading Gumo to give Ori the water vein, and he leaves. Ori returns to the Jinso tree and swiftly climbs to the top, fighting off corruption all throughout the massive tree, which has even corrupted the very core. Once Ori clears the corruption, Sane speaks directly to the tree's core and restores the element of water to it, and leading to the first true skill check of the game. You'll be tested with everything you've learned up to this point, and as the water rises, Ori must escape the climbing waves. Even hesitating for a second can cause death. The music builds all throughout this scene, and it's built perfectly to make you feel anxious, yet brave in this moment. Once Ori makes it out of the top of the tree, you feel relief, but only momentarily as you see Kuro, the owl that destroyed the light, watching from afar. She swiftly flies into action, attacking Ori and nearly killing him, leaving him to fling himself off the top of the tree. As Kuro sweeps in for the kill, Ori is rescued by Gumo, repaying the favor from earlier. He leaves again into the depths of the forest before Ori awakens. Soon after, Ori collects another spirit power, another reminder of those who weren't strong enough to do what he must. He continues through the swamp, and here's where the additions of the Definitive Edition comes in. After getting the Stomp upgrade, you can continue the story or go into a cave near the beginning of the game to find a statue built by Naru, a tomb of her past. We'll go ahead and tackle it now. When Naru was young, her and her father lived together in a dark cave. She would play with spirit guardians in the area, tossing orbs of light back and forth to them. Her father, however, is overprotective of her, grabbing her and taking her away from them. He kept her in the most secluded area of the cavern until she was grown. They grew very close, with her even sculpting statues of him to place around the cave. While away one day, he suddenly died, leaving her grief-stricken and deciding to leave the cave and never return. Soon after, she found Ori, deciding to adopt the little spirit that reminded her of her childhood. Ori and Sane learned this story while exploring the cave, leading Sane to say, "Though they are gone from our forest, there is no time to grieve. Remember those who have passed, and they will forever live on." This is a great way to bring back Naru and show that she truly cared for the spirit guardians. She would have taken the best possible care of Ori. Afterwards, Ori heads to the Valley of the Wind, where Kuro is waiting for him. If you attempt to cross the valley, Kuro will swoop and kill you. The only way forward is up. You'll bounce off of several enemies up to a crumbling stone barely hanging directly above Kuro and slam down onto her head, disorienting her and allowing you to pass, but not before collecting a feather she shed during the confusion. This feather is one of the many movement upgrades and allows for some ridiculous tricks to speed through the game. Ori then travels into the Misty Woods, the fumes of which can play tricks on your mind, which allows for a really fun sequence where the game will constantly shift your surroundings and introduce new challenges for you to face. It's certainly one of the most challenging parts of the game, but you'll eventually find a lantern that will show you the true path and clear the fumes, giving you the Gumon seal, which gives access to the Forlorn Ruins. Once you arrive, you'll notice that there are many dead creatures that look like Gumo. His people, the Gumon, watched over the Forlorn Ruins and were very inventive creatures. They could infuse the light of the Spirit Tree to power the machinery inside. However, because Kuro destroyed the Spirit Tree's light, the elements became unstable, and the entirety of the Forlorn Ruins was frozen, killing the Gumon as a race except for Gumo, who follows Ori inside. Ori uses an orb of light to maneuver around the ruins, defeating the corrupted enemies and escaping traps until he arrives at a room with an altar that harnesses the orb, powering the room and giving Ori access to the element of wind. Sane is saddened by the loss of the Gumon. It says that it hopes Gumo can forgive them. Gumo climbs into the Chamber of Wind and eavesdrops on Sane, who is explaining that they must restore the element of wind and use the creations of the Gumon to honor their memory. Gumo takes the orb of light and it brings the frozen ruins down around them, trapping Ori and Sane inside the room to activate the element of wind and forcing us into our second skill check. Once again, using all of your upgrades and what you've learned up to this point, you're tasked with ascending the icy cavern, barely escaping frozen debris and icicles falling around you. Each of these skill checks will test your abilities and give you an excellent set piece to remember. Once you escape, you'll slowly descend and land in the nest Kuro was in earlier, finding a single egg, leading to our next cutscene. Prior to the events of the game, Kuro was happily living in a nest with her 3 little owlets. She left to get them more food, and while she was gone, the spirit tree called to Ori, and the light was so intense that it accidentally killed them. Kuro flew as fast as she could, but she was too late, returning to find them and her unhatched egg. Enraged at the loss, she stormed towards the spirit tree, ripping Sane from it, damaging Sane, blinding the forest, and allowing the corruption to spread in the process. Kuro suddenly arrives and knocks them out of her nest, leading to one of my favorite parts of the game. You must escape Kuro's wrath as she watches for you. You must guide Ori stealthily through the snowy plain and into the caves before she lunges. It's a very short but sweet section, and you finally understand Kuro and why she is determined to stop you. She only wants to protect what she has left. Ori and Sane are understanding of this pain and don't want to cause any further harm or anguish to her, but they must restore Nibel. The element of wind has given lots of areas in the forest an upward draft, allowing the player to traverse tons of new areas. One of which is Ori's next objective. It's one of the highest areas in the game and it's absolutely beautiful. Once you ascend to the top of the mountain, you'll find the Sunstone, allowing access to Mount Haru and the end of the game. After grabbing it, the game transitions back to Gumo's perspective, who has traveled with the Orb of Light back to Ori and Naru's home, using the light to revive Naru and catching her up to speed on Ori's adventure. Gumo has had an amazing character arc. Consumed by darkness, he sneakily traveled near Ori, watching and waiting in the shadows to strike, stealing the water vein only to be trapped by his own folly. Once Ori shows him kindness, he understands that some people are good and only trying to make the world a better place. Upon finding his people frozen, he realizes he can't let anyone else die through his inaction, and actively revives Naru so that Ori can live happily once the adventure is over. In any other game, Naru would just be dead and never return, a way to push Ori on an adventure and nothing more. But she's more than that. She's the person that taught Ori that kindness that leads to her revival, bringing it all full circle. Ori and Sane travel to Mount Haru. Once Ori enters, you see Naru and Gumo following closely behind. Gumo is almost hit by a rock, and his path is blocked, leaving only Naru to reach Ori. Meanwhile, Ori and Sane begin the dungeon, each puzzle more challenging than what the Jinso Tree or the Forlorn Ruins has to offer, but both of those prepared you for what lies ahead. Ori must block rivers of lava to lower the lava flow in the main room. Once each room is cleared, the final door is opened, leading to the chamber of the element of warmth. Ori and Sane activate the element, but Kuro arrives and attacks the core, spewing lava everywhere and causing the volcano to erupt. This places Ori in the final set piece of the game. You must use every piece of knowledge and skill the game has taught you through this adventure. Climbing and diving through hidden paths, avoiding lava, corrupted enemies, sharp rocks, and Kuro herself as she attempts to finish the job. The music is tense, bombastic, and fear-inducing, all while the sound design is excellent during this tense escape. Even a fraction of a second's worth of hesitation will end in death. Finally, you'll make it through and reach the edge of the mountain. Ori jumps off to escape Kuro, but he's too late. Kuro grabs Ori and Sane, pinning them to the ground. Naru arrives and runs to Ori and Kuro. She cradles Ori, which makes Kuro realize that Ori is just a child, like she had. Like she will have again. She remembers her egg and sees that the flames spreading from the volcano are nearing her final egg. Kuro can't lose her child. Not again. She realizes that the only way to save her child is to restore the spirit tree using Sane. She flies and plants Sane back into the spirit tree, which forces a powerful blast of light across the forest, destroying the flames threatening her egg, but also disintegrating Kuro in the process. She dies hoping that her child can live a better life than she did. She could only make the right choice in the end. Rain begins to fall across Nibel, allowing plants to bloom again, restoring the forest to a healthy state and allowing new spirits to be born from the tree. The game ends with Naru, Gumo, and Ori living back in their cave as a new family. Naru goes into the cave to check something, Kuro's egg, which was safely recovered after the eruption, and suddenly, it begins to hatch before the game fades to black. This story is genuinely one of the best I've ever played. The character arcs all build off of each other, with a villain whose motivation is to protect what remains, and a world that is forever changed by the events taking place. I'd like to borrow a quote from the TV show WandaVision to sum up Kuro's character.
But what is grief, if not love persevering?
Kuro's grief turns to intense hatred for the light that was required to survive. She was blinded by hate and cared only for herself and her child. But through love, she realizes that she was wrong, and her hatred only leads to losing what she loved. That theme of love and loss is echoed constantly throughout the game. Ori loving and losing Naru, Gumo loving and losing his people, and Kuro loving and losing her children. Love and loss is natural. It's something that you use to build yourself as a person. Forcing yourself to dwell on loss is something that will only blind you to the love that you can show others. It's a very powerful message, and one that I hope everyone can understand. In the Definitive Edition, Naru's backstory is supposed to be played narratively before the Forlorn Ruins, because Naru hasn't been revived yet. But I have only ever played this after the end of the game. I would have thought this area is too difficult without the additional abilities earned throughout the game, but you can clear the area without them. I enjoy the additional character depth and development, and I think this was a very worthwhile addition to an already exceptional game. The Definitive Edition also adds tons of gameplay additions and quality of life changes, like the ability to warp between spirit pools, additional challenges and puzzles to open doorways between areas, 2 new abilities, one being a dash, and a ball of light you can throw to light torches for puzzles or attack enemies. So much is different gameplay-wise between the original game and the Definitive Edition that you can enjoy each version separately. That's one of the most unique aspects of making the Definitive Edition a separate purchase, but buying that edition will give you the original on either Xbox or Steam, giving you the most bang for your buck. Ori and the Blind Forest is a masterpiece, through and through. From the alluring artwork, to the masterful music, to the somber yet stunning storytelling, this game is one that won't be easily forgotten. It's one that simmers in your mind and only will grow better with age. It's one that I'll likely return to every so often, only to look at it more fondly each time. When you find a game like that, you know you found something truly special. Something that was made with a true passion for the medium. Something with meaning that is more than just another game on the pile. If you play video games at any level, I'd recommend this game to you. If you don't play it, or at the very least, watch someone else play it, you're missing a masterpiece.